Thanks. Okay, call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Full of the agenda.
Madam President, I move we approve the agenda with the following amendments. 1, additional classified personnel actions for consideration, item number E-3.
A second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. And any public comment? Okay. We will move on to recognition. Who's doing that?
I am.
I'm gonna let you hold it so it doesn't break. Okay. Good evening, board members. I am here tonight to recognize Maria Quintana. Maria currently teaches kindergarten at Alta Brown Elementary. She has been with the district for 10.5 years. If you've ever met Maria, you know her to be energetic and passionate, especially when it comes to her profession and her students. Maria has channeled that energy and passion into filling multiple roles as a member of Garden City Education Association, as well as her daily teaching. She currently serves as membership co-chair at our local, but also as ethnic minority representative for KNEA Southwest, our UNISERV. In addition to these, Maria also serves as a member of the Racial and Social Justice Committee for KNEA, which works to promote equity in education for students of marginalized communities across the state. Recently, GCEA traveled to our annual representative assembly. Thank you, by the way, for allowing us the time off. While there, Maria received recognition for her work in elevating ethnic minority teacher voices with the 2023 KNEA Human and Civil Rights Award. This award is given to an individual, school, educational association, or organization working in the field of human and civil rights. To be considered for the award, nominees must show work in one of the following categories: protecting the rights of others in such areas as child abuse, sexual abuse, missing children, civil rights, discrimination, working to bring about improved interpersonal or intergroup relations, working toward improvement in board staff relationships, working for further understanding and appreciation of multi-ethnic groups and other groups which suffer discrimination, establishing cooperative working relationships with other groups concerned with education, and promoting educational quality. We hope you will join us in congratulating Maria for this award, as it is very well deserved, and we are proud of the work she is doing to promote and honor the profession of education. Maria Quintana.
Really quick, I don't know how well you guys have kept up with this, but I believe we were trying to do the research, and Garden City has never been recognized for this award across the state. Normally it's like Wichita, Kansas City area that wins these, you know, because they're the bigger cities. So Garden City brought it home this year because I'm here. So I'll let you guys do what you want. Oh, pretty, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So we put, yes, Garden City finally made the board. Normally it's Wichita, Topeka. Thank you. Thank you.
And when, wait, come back.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to talk while you're walking then. So one thing I failed to mention in the introduction, because I was nervous and I agonized over this all day. But Maria has managed to bring our eastern counterparts west this summer. So because of Maria's advocacy, Garden City will be hosting the Summit in the West on July 29th. a racial and social justice conference for state educators. So we have her to thank for that coming in. It's going to be a great day of learning and a great day of business for Garden City. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have Forest Good building presentation.
Okay, I'm Brad Springston, principal of Horace Good Middle School, and this is Adriana Caro, the associate principal. We had planned for some kids to be here to present to you tonight. The miscommunication on the date that we were supposed to do the board presentation. And all those kids tonight were either in Ulysses for track or out playing soccer. So Mrs. Amber Potts, who is our yearbook sponsor, and her students put together this video. This video is one thing that we'll end up sharing with the intermediate schools to allow their students to kind of get a little taste of what the middle school is going to be like when they transition and some of the opportunities that are there. So we'll play this video for you and then answer any questions that you might have afterwards. Bluetooth it or?
You can play it through the computer speakers, and if we can send out the link to the board members, then I'll put it in the description when we do the video. It was working earlier. Sure was.
Some place where the students are proud to be here. I think another thing that makes us great is our staff. We have really good teachers. And lead by example.
Makes safety great. It's during
Yeah.
Awesome. Yes.
That'd be hilarious.
Yeah. Blow your rings today. So.
Adriana, I'll let you in the pledge. That could have been the best.
How many middle schoolers would have wanted to leave?
Hungry.
Might not. Yeah, might, right. Just playing off the.
Trust me, it was good.
Yeah, I could do computer, but I don't.
Well, whatever you want to do, we can mess with it more. I don't want to take any more of your time. But we'd be glad to answer any questions, and we'll put the link together, put it out there for you. We can email it to you if you'd like. You can watch it. And I guess if there's any questions that come up with that, you can, we'd be more than happy to answer any of those. More than happy to host you in the building anytime that you want to come see anything that you see there and stuff. Just don't want to take any more of your time since this isn't working right now, but it's been a great year for us. It's been one of the kind of third year. As you get past COVID, I guess, things are getting better and better for us. There's a lot of things that we had to overcome with COVID and kids and families and everything else, but I think we're starting to turn that corner. We're seeing a lot of good things happening this year. We're excited to see how some of our spring Fast Bridge data comes into us for a building that had 9 long-term subs in it to start the school year. I think it's going to be a year that we might see better growth than what we have in the past, which is kind of exciting. I mean, we had a little higher scores at the fall. Winter did its typical little bit of drop off, but it wasn't what we typically saw in the last few winters. And so we're hoping this spring we see something different. And then obviously we'll be getting our CAP scores coming to us here pretty soon. And that too, we're hoping to see some good results. So there have been some good things going on, lots of challenges as there is for everybody, but for us this year. It's been a very rewarding year. And for our 8th graders going to the high school, I think we're sending some good kids up there and they should be prepared to walk across the stage in 4 years. 7th graders should be some good ambassadors to our 6th graders coming in next year. And as like the video that we're sending out, we'll be putting up to this intermediate schools. That's going to hopefully get a lot of those kids involved in activities. And that's probably the biggest thing that you'll see in that video that comes across to you is we have kids that middle school is a challenging time for them and their parents, especially. And for us, we get 6 feeders and we get feeders from the smallest schools to big schools. And those kids coming into us, I really believe leave us prepared to go to Garden City High School. They come in and they do a great job molding into Hawks and a lot of unity, but a lot of that goes back to our teachers and our sponsors getting kids involved from a variety of activities. And that's something I really applaud our staff over the years that we've been able to be creative, utilizing our facility, utilizing staff's talents and getting them to do different things. So that's been a good thing to get our kids exposed and then give them a taste of what they're going to be able to have opportunities with when they go to the high school. So again, we'll send that to you. We'd be glad to answer any questions that you have tonight, but I apologize for this not working, but we'll get it to you.
Have you seen an increase in your activities in sports too? Did it kind of downturn with COVID?
So there was a slight downturn the year we returned. And then, well, take that back. We saw an uptick when we came back in the fall, but then we shut down and then we saw another drop. And so the spring was a pretty tough kind of getting kids going again after having that month where we didn't have kids in face-to-face learning. But since then, our numbers have been high. I think they're back to as high as they were pre-pandemic for us, which is a challenge for us because we have a lot of kids that get involved in stuff. And when you have a basketball team that you only put 5 on the floor, but you have 60 to 70 kids go out for basketball, creating those opportunities for those other kids is a challenge, but it's one that I think we've taken on, we've expanded it. We can't always rely on, but we've had places like Scott City, we've had sometimes Deerfield, other people that are looking for opportunities. We're getting those kids involved. And then we get the opportunity every once in a while to be able to send those kids on a road trip if they aren't one that maybe makes an A or a B. So those have been some challenges to kind of overcome with the numbers, but participation levels high.
I kind of caught you off guard with that, but I feel like academics in those kind of.
Yeah, no, it is. It's definitely one that makes a difference for us. And it's one that we for sure encourage our kids to get involved with because we do have the no pass, no play, no pass, no attend. Acacia gives you the 5. So we give the kids opportunity when they come into 7th grade, regardless of what they did academically, they all get the opportunity to be eligible when they come in as a 7th grader. But once that first semester gets completed, they have to have completed 5. But once we start in season, it's week to week eligibility. And we have conversations, we pull those kids in, and to us, they're students first. And not only should they be representing themselves in the classroom, but they better be representing themselves when they go outside the classroom, because they don't just represent Forest Good, they represent their family in this community.
Brad, you said you had 8 long-term subs this
Yes.
year. Is that a low number for you all?
No, that's very high.
Okay.
That last year was very difficult in hiring. This year, we will, barring what unfolds, I guess, in the next few weeks, but we should start the year next year, I believe, with 2 or 3 long-term subs. Both of them, or 2 of them are in programs. One will be student teaching in the fall at an elementary with the intention of coming back to us in January as a certified teacher at that time. So the path of those folks getting involved and taking different alternative routes to education has been a plus to us. So it is nice to see with that, but it's definitely put a strain on our sub situation. Today we had 6 unfilled positions in our building today, which puts a lot of strain, utilizing staff. This is in the last 2 weeks is the first time that I want to say maybe in the last 5 years that we've had to actually place somebody into an hour to fill for a sub job, which means that our staff is generally stepping up and filling those roles when there's a vacancy that we don't have a sub fill the job, and they'll sub on their plan period. And we go through and we know which staff like to do this. And so we position them throughout our master schedule, different hours. So we always have an abundance of people that like to sub on a regular basis available different hours. And so, but this year for the last 2 weeks, we've had more out, a lot of activities obviously going on in the springtime and other illnesses. So hopefully that's not a trend that continues.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can if you want. I'll do it. Okay. Any correspondence? Okay, we will move to approval of the consent agenda.
Madam President, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
There's a second? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passed. We're moving on to our board goals update with our student intern program.
Well, I appreciate y'all having me back. Y'all talked about that y'all wanted an update, and we're looking into the student interns. I actually brought a team with me today. So this is Afton Huck. I don't know if y'all met her or not, but her and Darlene were the kind of the two that kind of got this whole ball rolling and so forth. So I want to make sure that y'all met her. And then we also have David Deloach will come speak up here in a minute with us, because I want y'all to get it from the campus view as well, as far as what these interns have meant to the campus level. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. You want to tell them what the LIFT was all about, how y'all came up with that or not?
Sure. So LIFT stands for Lead, Inspire, Fulfill, and Transform. And so really the idea behind this was to, the hope or the goal would be that we are taking high school seniors that have some time in their schedule, second semester, before they graduate. They've got some time in their schedule where they're not in class. And so then they're helping fill some student support in our elementary, early childhood through 6th grade classrooms. So that was really kind of the idea behind it. But ultimately, what we would love to do is see some of those students get inspired through this program to pursue a career in education. So we'll just kind of jump into. This is kind of what we started with. So we had 43 interested candidates. And so we rolled this program out early. We kind of started advertising or recruiting early January. So we had 43 at that point, and then we ended up hiring 15. So where did the other ones go? A lot of them had graduated in December. So we were actually able to hire some of those into paraprofessional positions. So we were able to get some paras through this, and then some just weren't eligible. Maybe their GPA wasn't high enough, or they weren't seniors. So anyway, hired 15, and then those 15 went into 10 different buildings, early childhood up to 6th grade. We also did a survey at the start of, I would say we were probably a couple of weeks into the program. So we did survey these students. And one of the questions that we asked was, does getting paid, earning a wage, did that influence you to enroll or to be interested in this program? 80% of them did say yes. So we feel like we, made a good decision with that. And then over 1,300 hours, that's kind of where we're at as of Friday. We had 1,300 hours that we have clocked with these student interns in classrooms, just really helping support those teachers and those students. And Joe will kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we want to just kind of give you an overview as far as what assignments the students actually were put into. So some were put into kindergarten math, first grade math, third grade math and reading, and then fourth grade math. And then, so they are in those subject areas when the students were being taught those particular items. And then these are the duties that they did in that capacity. So some work with small groups, some work with small reading groups. They assisted students when there was a whole group kind of keeping kids on task. As SEL was the social emotional learning support for individual students, and then writing support, and then working with the fast forward and the dream box intervention support as well. So like Afton was telling y'all, 1,300 hours. I mean, so that's incredible that those are 1,300 hours that we got contact with kids that we wouldn't have had otherwise if y'all wouldn't approve this program. So we really appreciate y'all doing that. And so that's all we have for you, but I do want to bring up Mr. Deloach, and he also has an intern with you, and then the teacher that she was with. Okay.
Hello again, everybody. So I have Mr. Brager with me, fourth grade math, and I have our LIFT intern Risa with us. And I do want to say, like, right off the start, first day, both of our interns, we had two, jumped right in. What can they do? Started supporting students right away. And then we already got kind of a schedule for them to support, and it's been very, very appreciative. And every day I ask her if she wants to change her direction after high school, because currently she's not interested in going into education, but I feel like we could maybe give her a little peer pressure because she's really awesome. A few weeks of peer pressure. So Mr. Brager, if you'd like to maybe share a little bit about what you have recently doing.
Sure. From what I've seen of this program, I think it's a win-win for our district. I think that it gives high school students such as Ms. Brisa here some life experience and being able to explore career opportunities. Again, I agree with Mr. Deloach that I hope that she might go into education because she's great at what she does. It also helps out the students in my classroom. I'm seeing increased performance, and I'm also seeing them with increased confidence. They're participating in class more. They're willing to try solving some of these problems that before they might not have tried to solve because they thought that they were too difficult. And it gives me an opportunity to give these students more one-on-one small group settings to get the help that they need, not only from me, but also from Ms. Brisa here. She does a great job, and I hope you're able to continue this program.
Brisa, did you want to?
I'd just like to say that this opportunity has been amazing. I love working with the kids. I think they're super funny and they're super bubbly. It reminds me of whenever I went to Gertrude Walker. I'll say a lot of them are so, well, about Gertrude Walker in general, I feel like that school is such a community. Every student, I swear, knows every student there. And it's like a really special thing. I really like working with all of them because I don't know, they just make my day and I really enjoy what I do. And I love being able to help them and being there for them whenever they need somebody.
Thank you.
Right.
Yes, you have a question for us? Sure.
So how many hours do you put in per week, per day?
About 12. 12 per week, and then I work from 1 to 5, so 4. I help during the day after I'm done with my classes, and then I help with the after school.
And what kind of training are we giving the students? What is the training program for the students that do this program?
Yeah, so we did 2 trainings initially. The first training included we actually sat down and helped them through their onboarding paperwork for new hires. And then we also at that point just went through some basic, Darlene and I called it adulting 101. So for some of these kids, some of these students, this is their first job. So we kind of went through just what the expectations are of this job and really any job. And then the second training was a confidentiality. So this is what's expected in the classroom in terms of confidentiality.
And how does that compare to when you hire full-time para? Is the training?
So I would say when we hire full-time paras, they get probably, I don't know, they get more probably on the job than what our office even provides to our full-time paras. And that's actually something that Amy Ricks has kind of brought to the forefront for our district. So that's kind of something that we're talking about now.
There is a lot of on-the-job training and support from teachers and just kind of like that community too, of wherever there's a need, we kind of fill in. Our instructional coach has done a lot of that too with our paraeducators, depending on what we're asking them to do, who we're asking them to work with, if they have questions, if they need training on a certain procedure or instructional resource.
I think I had the opportunity to go to Georgia Matthews for a faculty meeting. And they praised their young lady that's assigned to their school as well. Not only did they love her, but the students did as well. So I think it's working. And she too was a nursing, they're trying to convert her.
Now, so we asked students last week what their career plans or the plans for post-graduation. And so far we haven't heard any that are pursuing education, but we're holding out and we have a few more weeks to convert. So we're working on them.
Even if they don't, I still think they're filling a vital need.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the other thing is this gives them an opportunity to help build their resume. So they can say, I did an internship when I was a senior in high school and this is how it went. So it's just a great opportunity for them and it helps us as well. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another question, but I think these are excellent, innovative programs. And Captain, I also want to congratulate you for doing an exceptional job and helping lead the time with the governor when she was out for her conversation. You did a very good job. So
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that was, things like this are certainly what is going to help either fill the gap in the shortage on our paraprofessionals or our teacher shortage. So certainly things like this, kind of thinking outside of the box is what we need. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
you. Standards-based grading is next.
Sorry, yes. It's just the PowerPoint that says standards-based grading.
You're gonna let me touch it? Ooh. Nope, that's not. Alrighty, so I'm Amy Ricks from Charles Stones. I'm Gina Gelpin from Bernadine Sitz. And so we're here to talk to you about standards-based grading. So standards-based grading, or SBG as we call it, it's an intentional way for teachers to track students' progress and achievements. This way they can focus on helping students learn and reach their highest potential. It's based on the students showing signs of mastery or understanding in various lessons and skills.
We did work with Matt Townsley as our consultant for standards-based grading. He is the author, one of the authors of Making Grades Matter. He has been, I think, a game changer for this whole process of moving standards-based grading into 5th and 6th grade at the intermediate center. We've had standards-based grading in kindergarten through 4th grade, but the older you get, the more difficult it can be to think about transitioning to a different way of grading. Parents are used to the ABCD, the percentages and the grade point averages. And so he has helped train our staff, and he worked with a small leadership team in both buildings to help us lead standards-based grading in our buildings. All staff in our buildings attended a half-day in-service with Matt Townsley back in September. And after that time, we had almost complete buy-in from the staff. He led us in developing a grading purpose statement for the intermediate centers. And this comes from our document that we've been working on with him. The purpose of standards-based grading is to communicate to parents, students, and teachers the learner's level of progression of standards to show evidence of learning and areas for continued growth. So it takes out some of the things that we have had as part of grades for a long time, such as behavior, and if they're completing all of their work. And so it can, our past traditional grading practices could give a false impression of whether or not the student has actually mastered grade level content. They could get an A oftentimes if they just were good students, well-behaved and completed all of their work. And it really didn't always indicate whether or not they had mastered the grade level content. So that's one of the major shifts. These are some important elements of our standards-based grading document that has been a shift for some people. Students have multiple opportunities to improve their level of mastery. So it's not just one assessment that will determine a grade. They can continue to show improved growth toward their learning of the standards for the grade level. If homework is given, it should serve as ungraded practice of the learning standard. You're just trying to continue to improve in mastering your grade level standards. And homework is one way you can continue practicing to get there. Behavior is reported separately. So Matt led us through a process of having teachers develop which areas they wanted to grade for behavior. So we have success skills on the report card so that it's reported separately and not part of their content area grades. Students can show their level of mastery in a variety of ways, both written or oral responses. So we have some students who really struggle with written work or they don't test well. And so a teacher can call them over and ask them questions and get some oral responses to see how well they understand the content, and the students can get credit for some of the different ways of presenting their knowledge. And students must demonstrate additional learning has taken place before retaking assessments. So they should be given an opportunity to retake assessments with standards-based grading, but they do have to, they can't just keep retaking the test. They have to do something to show that they've increase their knowledge before they reassess. Do you have a question?
Yeah.
I'll forget when we get to the end.
Do you find that increases assessment time or decreases that our kids? I know assessment isn't necessarily just a written test, it's my understanding. There's different forms of it, but do you find that there's, I guess, is it causing them to have more time doing assessments because they can do them over again, or decreasing that?
They typically don't retake the assessments during their content time. We have time built into the day. For example, we have enrichment time at the end of the day for the last 30 minutes. So if a student was retaking an assessment, they could do it at a different time. They don't have to do it during the class time.
And we have the same, we have a MTSS time, multi-tier system support time, where they can go and show that they have made additional learning strides. So it's not any more testing in the classroom than we have in the past. At least I don't feel that it is. Here's just a graphic that really shows how a traditional grading system works versus the standards-based grading system. You know, in the traditional grading system, it's an overall grade. So if I received, 350s because I didn't get it at first, but then I received a 100 at the end, I still failed because of those 350s when I didn't understand it at first. But with standards-based grading, you take their most recent knowledge to determine whether or not they know the standard. So it's not an average. It's not a what I knew then versus what I know now. It's a what you know now and what you can present to the teacher to show us that you've learned that. So that's, like I said, it's just a really good graphic that helps explain that.
I do have a quick question too. Sorry, based on because it talked about homework and not being homework marked for a grade necessarily. So do you find that doing that kind of takes the incentive away for a student to do that homework?
At first, we saw a little bit of a dip, we did, but then when they saw that other students were doing it, they were going through the assessments, getting it like that and moving on. It was kind of like an aha for them that, well, if I do it, then I'm going to get this assessment the first time and I'm not going to spend my MTSS time working on relearning this and are doing things. So we've seen it go down a little bit, but it's come back up now.
Because that's what I was wondering with their little, the brains doesn't always connect like that. will lead to this. And so that's interesting because I've heard different studies about homework and whether it's valuable or not. So
We don't have a lot of homework
don't
at
need
our
it.
levels. We don't it's been a battle we've fought for a long time. We don't get a lot of homework returned. And then you don't always know who's doing the homework or, you know, how that child completed the work that is coming back. So it's hard to give a grade anyway. We've always struggled with that because there's just a lot of factors involved when they're not doing it in the classroom.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, those are the standards grade, the standards levels, excuse me. And then what does that mean? So if you receive a 1, it means it's little to no understanding of the standard taught. A 2 is basic understanding of the standard, you're approaching grade level. 3 is an effective understanding of the standard, you're on grade level. 3 is where we want our kids to be. 4 is an excellent understanding of the grade, of the standards, and so that's exceeding the grade level benchmark. In fall of 2022 at CSIC, we started with 5 teachers doing standards-based grading. And then we had the training with Matt Townsley, and several teachers saw how our 5 that were doing the standards-based grading, how one, they said it was easier once they got into the groove of it, because you can walk around and talk to the student and tell if they have the standard or not. So that can take the place of an assessment. And at semester, we had all but 4 teachers switch to standards-based grading.
And at BSIC, we had 7 teachers that originally started the pilot, and then at semester, all 6th grade teachers joined. And so we have all of our 6th grade teachers doing standards-based grading, plus 3 that had started in the fall. So a lot of teachers saw the value in standards-based grading and wanted to jump in at the semester.
does that mean that teachers have an option of whether or not to do it?
During the pilot, we had a core group that we were working with, and then more asked if they could join at semester. And so we did work with them on that. It was an option during the pilot. Next year, it will be full implementation, or that's the plan.
So back in the fall again, each school held a parent meeting to explain what standards-based grading was, how the teachers were going to come about with the levels and so forth. The teachers who were using the standards-based grading spent extra time at conferences clarifying and explaining it to sorry. And then parents were receptive of the idea, especially our kiddos, our 5th graders, because they've been used to it in 4th grade anyway.
We did have some challenges during our pilot. At parent night in September, our attendance was fairly low. So while the parents were receptive, there were still a lot of parents who did not get the information in the same way when it was presented. Our report cards and progress reports have been a challenge working with technology. It will work itself out. We have a plan over the summer to get our report cards finalized so they're ready for next year. This year, they weren't ready because we were working through the process during the pilot, and that created some issues with Fiverr. That will not be a problem next year. We did not, because of our lack of PD time in our calendar, we did not have enough time for district collaboration to talk about standards-based grading. So it really takes our buildings trying to coordinate, and that was difficult due to the lack of time in the calendar. And then a challenge that we're having is just how are we going to continue to train our new teachers who will be beginning standards-based grading. I've recommended continuing our relationship with Matt Townsley because he has been extremely helpful in helping us all move through this process, and it has definitely helped with teacher buy-in and their understanding of what true standards-based grading should look like. That's, I think, all we have. Do you have any other questions?
What is the cost to have him?
I do not know. We don't pay.
He's, I don't want to sound, he's cheap. So he works as a professor at the University of Northern Iowa in their leadership studies.
Affordable is what you.
Yeah, affordable, sorry. He calls himself cheap too. Basically, it's covering his expenses with a little nominal fee on top. So I think our entire invoice for him, which was 6 virtual meetings and in person, was somewhere around 3,500. So we emailed him not yesterday, but Friday, and per suggestions, and we're trying to secure him to come back out September 25th in person. He says he has family that lives in the area, so he does enjoy coming out this direction. And then we'll have, again, 3 to 4 type Zoom connects with him throughout the year next year to help with just ongoing support. Because while we piloted this year, next year we want to roll it out a little bit more intently and across all teachers, with the idea of a year from now, we can come back and say, this is what it's going to look like. And we're asking for approval to do this district-wide 5-6. So while next year will be more intent and we'll be asking everybody to participate, it's still in the data collection phase because of like report cards and progress reports. Those things, we think we have the hurdles and kinks figured out, but it's going to continue to pop up through time. So we need one more year of growth and learning about it. They still get ABC, but it gets converted to a letter grade still at this time, doesn't it? Or it doesn't?
No. If they're doing standards-based, the teacher's doing standards-based grading, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4. It stays that way. And Matt discouraged at our level making that because it really isn't the same. For example, a 4 is exceeding the grade level, so it's not.
It's not 100, it's like more than
We don't want them to revert back to taking points for things and averaging grades because that is not what standards-based grading is. Like Amy said, it's taking the most recent data, not starting with where you were when you first started learning about it. It's where you ended and how far did you go in your understanding of the standards. So if you try to attach a letter grade, then what we find is teachers and parents try to then put the traditional grading practices back into play, and then it really isn't true standards-based grading. So we try to keep it completely separate. If it went to the high school, I know we've talked to Matt about it would eventually probably have to convert somehow to a letter grade and to a GPA, but at our level, it's not necessary.
Is it gonna go to, you say it would be district-wide next year? We're gonna keep it with, Sits and Stones will continue with the process. We're gonna invite the country schools and Abe Hubert to join in the process of getting their teachers onboarded and learning about it and adding those pieces in. Then the hope would be a year from now, that would be, we'd be able to present enough data that this is successful to say we would ask for it to go to 5th and 6th grade standards based like we have K-4 at this point in time.
Not district-wide next school year, but possibly fall.
Correct.
Okay.
So we'd still be in a quasi pilot in 23-24, then 24-25 would be the timeline we laid out a year ago to be district-wide 5-6. And at that time, KH has expressed interest in looking at this as well. They just may not be ready to dip their toes completely in the water yet, but they did a book study this year on that book. They referenced called Making Grades Matter in their building. So they're looking at it as well as a potential option that they would like to look at.
So do you all? I cannot speak tonight.
It's been a Monday,
Right? It really has. Do you all prefer this method of grading?
I do. When I first became principal, one of the most difficult things for me was meeting with parents and teachers about grades. And if there were Fs or sometimes it was hard to support the grading practices if it didn't seem fair. And what Matt Townsley will teach is, and I'm not going to be able to communicate well on this, but the 0 to 100 scale is not a fair scale for kids. If you get zeros put in, you almost can't recover because it's disproportionate. Somebody who's math-minded might be able to speak more to that, but so it was very difficult. And I know as a parent, and I've spoken about it a lot because I'm kind of passionate about it. I have 3 kids who had A's in math going through high school, and they did not have, I learned when they got to college, the content knowledge that I thought they had, because I thought the A communicated that, but it clearly did not, because they struggled to get into college algebra, all 3 of them, after having A's. So it was just and I know the new teacher project calls it the opportunity myth, which does relate to some other subgroups of kids, but it's the same idea that we have a false idea of where our kids are in their learning based on some of the traditional grading practices that are happening.
Where do you feel like, because I agree with this, I think it's a good point. I have one that struggled with math, but the accountability and effort part, I know you said behavior is essentially graded a different way. How do we keep them motivated in that? Especially, I feel like they get up to the upper elementary and middle school still letter grades, but yeah.
Well, and I know we've had a lot of that conversation. We didn't see any difference in motivation when kids were getting A's, B's, F's. F's can have a really negative impact on kids, especially if the zeros won't ever allow you to pass, no matter how many of the other grades you get. Sometimes you're stuck there in that failing grade. So I think we've been going through the rubrics with kids and, you can achieve this if you do these things. And we try to share all the information to help them be successful. But ultimately, they still have to have that intrinsic motivation to want to do well and care about their grades. And the majority of our kids do. And the
Plus,
majority of our parents do.
it helps where they're transitioning up from fourth grade. They've already been doing it. So it's not like it's an option because it's not something totally brand new.
So you said you didn't have a good, I'm sorry.
Right.
You said you didn't have good turnout for the parent night. Is something sent home with the parents though, like, or is there some kind of online information access to this?
Yeah. We sent home at CSIC, we sent home a brochure explaining standards-based grading, and then I have a Shobi account that any parent at CSIC can get onto. And there was a PowerPoint that played on there that explained standards-based grading. And then at conferences, we suggested to parents certain times when they could come, so that way the teachers would have more time to talk to them about standards-based grading.
Any other questions?
I have a question. How is the consistency from classroom teacher to teacher? With letter grades, you have 10 problems, it's pretty easy to figure what's wrong, what's incorrect, but how is that with this? How does that?
Our
transition?
teachers, there was still a lot of inconsistencies because teachers graded different things. They took grades on a variety of things and it was very inconsistent. Our teachers meet in PLCs and they have talked about the rubrics, and our plan for next year is to do that's our focus. This year, we're working on our guidelines and what do we need to follow in order to be consistent with how we're grading and what we're grading. But the teachers next year will work on rubrics. What is a 1 with this standard? What does a 1 look like? What does a 2 look like? And they'll have those conversations
And
more.
we've been talking to Michelle Byer about having a scoring camp this summer. Plus, as part of TNTP, teachers need to have exemplar answers of what exactly they're looking for, what they would call a 4. And then in their PLCs, they would get together and collaborate, sort of like principals do when we do e-walkthrough collaborations and so forth. So we all calibrate and are on the same page.
Related, since you survived the Ark River Water Festival
We did.
today.
We survived. It went very well. It was fun.
Beautiful day for it.
It was a
Absolutely
beautiful day.
gorgeous.
We were very lucky. So,
Commend you for hosting that.
yeah.
That's
Oh,
great.
it's fun. The kids enjoyed a different way of learning. So.
And that's classes to the west of Garden City. that
We
came in
had
as
Deerfield and Lakin and the Catholic schools. And I think that's it. I think you'll get the ones to the east. So.
Had to ask. Thank
It was
you.
great.
Great. And then, yes, I direct this over to my, so that seeking approval perhaps to the next meeting to continue this? Or no?
Yeah, I mean,
Or-
I guess we're kind of asking for consent to continue the pilot through one more year and then ask for full on putting it in the handbooks and having it as a district-wide policy for grading in a year. but we wanted to give an update on how year one would consent to continue working on it as sits and stones next year, not, I mean,
But there would be an eventual after that, after next year, you said as a pilot too, so after that, there would be another.
like a year from now or March or April of '24,
Okay.
we would be requesting that it would become standard grading practice for 5th and 6th grade.
I was interpreting as we're approving both in one setting, but we
No.
need to hear updates in a year to decide that, I would think, so.
Yeah. So we could do a late March, early April update of how this year went with everybody doing it. And
Thank
then
you, I didn't mean to.
No, thank you.
Like you would answer that.
then a second meeting in April or 1st of May to approve it as standard practice for 5-6.
I guess if anyone else has any other questions that come up, and then it'll be on the agenda for the next meeting. Didn't even get to introduce you. I mean, thank
I gotta
you.
pull up like 3 separate documents.
I don't have a big introduction to give you any.
No, that's different. Really just set us up.
Dane is in charge of music.
I need my.
That's right.
All right, so in the packet, you had a couple of different documents. So our original lease on our American Tower agreement, and then an amendment, and then a request for another amendment. So this American Tower agreement is in reference to our original release agreement that was dated February 14th of 2003 by the Board of Education and Altel. This agreement is for a cell tower located at Horace Good Middle School. The initial term was for 7 years and a monthly rate of $500. On May 22nd, 2019, there is a dated amendment to the original agreement on this tower. The district received a one-time payment in the amount of $20,818.10. This agreement then included rent and an escalation of 3% in the amount of $819.55 per month, and that increases annually by 3%. The current proposal that is presented for the board's approval is to extend the current lease an additional 40 years with a one-time payment of $20,000. And the rental payments would continue at $819.55 per month, with an increase in February of 2024 and to the total of $895.54. The 3% annual escalation would be included in that. So essentially, I just need consensus from the board on how you would like to move forward with these terms. So the agreement can be drafted and then reviewed by legal counsel and then returned back for final signatures. So the current is option 20,000 one-time payment, and then the current rent of $819.55 a month to continue, which increases annually, and the next increase would be February of 2024.
Did you, sorry, Mark,
Yeah, we'll start at this.
Go for it.
We have other tower lease agreements, correct?
Yep.
And how does this compare?
Pretty similar in terms and monthly rents. They're all pretty close to about that 600 to 800 range.
Is this the tower that we had the discussions on the property lines and that?
No, that's at Abe Hubert.
Actually, Watertown.
So the monthly rates are similar, but is a 40-year timeline the norm? That seems very long.
Yes. I've seen in Abe Hubert, and I believe the high school were 20, and they did try to negotiate for 40-year terms.
And did we do that? Not remember, sorry.
I don't recall. I'll double check. I'll look and see if we've approved a 40-year term.
That would be my hesitation. I would want to do the same thing as try and negotiate our other.
Would it be helpful to research what it would look like if we discontinued the agreement prior to that 40 years? So what that penalty would look like so that board could weigh that? in that?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're, I'm sorry. I
So
don't
if
understand.
we
Yeah,
could-
if
so-
we do
go
the
ahead.
40, but if we get out early.
What the
Oh.
penalty would be.
That makes sense, then you can weigh that option with the consideration of the 40-year term.
It would be good
Yeah.
to know what the
Yeah.
duration is
Yep.
of the others.
Absolutely.
There's
Yeah.
a certain simplicity of consistency there.
You bet.
I think it's good to know, and I think 20 years is better.
What else can I provide?
These, I think they're responsible for all the maintenance of the car, is that right?
Pretty similar language is what was in the original lease and maintenance is that they, or original lease and the amendment. There is a section in there on equipment and maintenance.
I suppose.
Yeah,
Has our
they-
activities director seen this? I'm just wondering whether he wants to put LED signs advertising the high school.
There you go.
Sure, yeah, just throw it on.
Not a serious question.
I'll look into that stuff. I'll bring it back to the board and go from there. Thank you.
Okay, we're ready for board open discussion. Volunteers.
Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I got spring fever, as do my kids, so, graduations and, really thankful to all the educators and staff that are dealing with all those kids also having spring fever right now, so.
Oh, that's all I was gonna mention was that very thing.
That's part of our job,
That's
right?
right.
Graduation. Andy?
I really enjoy hearing the student internship program update. Having, principals and Berger here to kind of talk firsthand about the impact students have in the classroom. Really good. We're encouraged excited about that program.
Got a couple graduations coming up. We're in mad dash to the end. So Virtual and Achieves is Saturday the 6th and Garden City High School is Sunday the 14th. So really excited about that. That'll be a good time, fun, and celebration for us all as far as graduating, walking people across the stage. So it'll be a celebration for sure.
Got to, I'd add to that list, the teacher's appreciation.
Appreciate it.
That's huge. I know we sort of missed it there with COVID and all of that, but I hope it can be well attended. I know it's awkward. We sort of release them and then ask them to come back for recognizing their coworkers and colleagues for years of service, that kind of thing. I think it's well worth it. And I just hope the teachers are able to attend. And I look forward to it.
Mark, will you grace us with some singing again? It's a treat. Mark's a singer.
Yep.
Maybe a limerick.
Okay. Okay, the next board meeting take place on Monday, May 15th at 6 PM in the board meeting room. And we will move into our one executive session.
Madam President, I move we go into executive session for 30 minutes to discuss a personnel matter pursuant to non-elected personnel exception under KOMA. To discuss an individual employee's performance beginning at 5 after.
Yeah.
And the open meeting will resume in the board meeting room at 7:35. Time, right?
Yep.
I would like to invite Dr. Dominguez to join us in executive session.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?